There we are. And hello, everybody. I'm Trevor.
And I'm Tom.
This is Agency Real Talk, where we talk about how to launch your agency and scale it
For real.
because this is real talk, you see. If you have an agency that's doing less than $1 million a year, good news, we're in the trenches growing our business through that size too.
Listen in if you want to learn how we're doing it and the tips that we've learned along the way.
And today we're talking about parting is such sweet sorrow, but I do so that I may see thee again upon the morrow. How to say goodbye.
It's an art and a little bit of a science. And today we're going to talk about a couple of tips that you can take for your own clients and how to say goodbye the most constructive, right way, and when you might want to say goodbye on your terms instead of when the contract says.
There's
So
definitely
let's get into it.
That's definitely one of the benefits of having an agency with many clients as opposed to working for one boss in a company is when the client is just not a good fit or the boss is just not a good fit, you can say goodbye on your own terms. But I think there's a couple of things you want to do when you say goodbye. And first up, I think we can acknowledge there are bittersweet partings a la Romeo and Juliet, and then there are angry partings a la Macbeth. And apparently I'm Shakespearean today. And despite that, either of them, I think one of the best things you can do to make the offboarding process clearer for you and to learn something about it is to ask some good questions for your clients when you offboard them. Do you have any examples of questions you like to ask people as you do an exit interview with them? As you
I
say
do.
goodbye? Oh,
I
tell
do
me
have
more.
some questions. The first thing I'm going to say actually is hold an exit interview. Right?
Yes,
So,
I'm crap
so
at that.
a lot of people will just send an email like, "All right, good luck, bye bye," but like not actually have a meeting set on the calendar for, hey, you know what, you just offboarded or you're offboarding. Let's have an exit interview and really like air out what your experience was, right? And it's really important that when you set up that interview, that you're really clear that you're asking for feedback and you want the candid, direct feedback from their experience. Whether or not things have changed, whether or not processes are different or people are different or whatever it is, that client had a legitimate experience and they get to share the good, bad, and the ugly with you at that moment in time. So if you don't have an exit interview on the calendar, you're just never going to get that information. So number one, first question is,
Do it.
can I have an exit interview with you? Right?
Definitely.
That's the first thing you need to have.
And it's worth noting, right? This is, I'd argue, more important probably with clients who are leaving because they're unhappy than with clients who are leaving because they've been so phenomenally successful with you, they don't need your business anymore. Like, it's actually those clients who are like, I hate you, you're fired, are the ones who will tell you what you got wrong and you can hopefully fix next time.
Yeah. And that's like the most valuable thing that you could actually get, right? It's not going to be the last payment or whatever. It's going to be the information that you can use to improve the systems, improve your own process, so that whatever blunder happened with that disgruntled client can be remedied in the future. So setting up the framework to even have an exit interview is absolutely a pro tip if you have had clients churn, and it happens to every agency. So definitely set up those interviews.
So, give me an example of a question you like in an exit interview.
Probably. So I ask a couple non-conventional ones. One is there anything that you were surprised about? Open-ended. It can come in a lot of different forms. People can be pleasantly surprised or negatively surprised. But the fact that there was a gap in expectations and reality tells you so much more, in addition to whatever their answer is, right? So is there anything that you were surprised about over the course of whatever? And you can get more specific to different phases of your project or to different deliverables that happened. But surprise is one of those double-edged emotions where some people are pleasantly surprised and some people are not. So being able to dig into that is a really flexible question to open up the discussion, right? Because
That's
you
a good
want to
question.
tease a lot of these things out and have an organic conversation.
Yeah, I like that better than my usual opener. My usual opener is, what was the primary reason why you broke up with us? What's the reason? But yours is better because it's important when you ask a question like, "Hey, why are you leaving?" that you don't argue with the client when they're like, "You did this and this and this," and you're like, "No, I didn't." No, don't get into that. You're here to get information. You should be talking maybe 10% of the time.
Yeah.
But your question is better because it's not just an excuse to dogpile on me, right? It is what surprised you, and maybe they'll be like, "Oh, I was surprised by this pleasant thing, and then here's four bad things,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever," right? So that's a better question than my usual one.
But
And the other
to
question,
your
right?
point though, like why are you leaving, right? Like why is this really direct thing happening? When you're getting that feedback and you're getting the direct reasons, it is not time to fight any battle here. You got ears on and you are listening. You ask questions, you do not respond to something, and you obtain the feedback, you bring it back to your team, and then you and your team can decide, let's filter out these comments. These are one time, or this happened with an employee that left, or this was because whatever. Like you can filter feedback absolutely internally, but when
Yeah.
you're on that call, just get information, just listen. That's the most valuable thing that you can do. For some of the other tips that we're going to talk about today, like preserving the relationship or being able to sort of parlay, a past client into something else in the future.
Yes, indeed. That is what you want to get is every agency, if they're doing their job, has clients coming on board every month and probably has clients leaving every month or so too. The gathering the quantifiable data, right? Don't just take transcript. Also spend some time afterwards. Dive into this. See if you can type some of these responses into, service delivery wasn't up to snuff, or um, lack of communication around what was being delivered, or like put some tags on this. Make a Airtable or a Notion DB or a spreadsheet or whatever, so that as you're having clients consistently depart, because they will, you are also noting what those consistent causes are. You'll never get client churn to zero. That's not your goal. But your goal is to, one, not be surprised by it. The client who I had a client churn this last week, which is why we're having this conversation. Right? My top of mind for me, right? It was they were 10K through a 30K contract, so I basically lost 20K. And the reason why they churned is 100% predictable on communication. When a team member was sick and we just didn't have processes in place to do the right next thing instead.
Yeah.
So when they churned, I was like, I mean, will we still have an exit interview? Yeah, I hope so. We'll see. The guy's miffed right now. But I know why he churned when I saw from the client's point of view what happened. And I went, oh, that's
Makes sense.
also not an uncommon thing in my agency because, as I mentioned to somebody I'm recruiting right now, I care about the problems that the clients have with their marketing. I'm not really a people person. The communication is stuff I do in order to get to solve interesting things. And with that kind of priority in the way I do things, yeah, communications are weak, and I need to make sure I hire people who are stronger at it so we improve those things.
But most people that run agencies are in love with the problem or in love with the thing that they get to do, right? That's why they're running an agency. Finding the right handful of people to surround you with that have skills and preferences and abilities that you don't necessarily have is going to directly correlate with how successful your entire agency is going to be able to be.
Yep.
So it is what it is with that. But one of the other questions that I always like to ask is uh, a little suggestive. So it's, hey, you remember this thing that we're set to do for you? How are you doing this now? Or what is your plan to do this thing in the future? Right? That kind of opens up the conversation for, we're hiring this in-house, we're going with another agency, we don't think it's important anymore. What are you recognize the problem, they hired you because there was a problem there, and what are they going to do now with this problem that they presumably still have or don't have anymore because you solved it? You learn a lot when you're poking that problem directly to say, let's talk about this
Yeah.
thing that actually got you to subscribe or join or sign a contract with us, and where did that problem go? What changed? And that
Gotcha.
also opens up a can of worms.
And that can also be a client retention tactic if the client has said we're done with you, and then you bring up, hey, cool, here's what's going to change, right? You're going to lose access to all of these things. because the tooling is going to go away when you stop the contract with us. You'll still get access to these things, and then we're going to hand you over these files. And sometimes, depending on your business and everything, the client might actually go, you know what? I don't want to cancel with you. I need these things. Can we downgrade because I have to save some money or something like that? So you can claw back some wins there, but that shouldn't be your goal going into a client exit interview call. Let me ask you, what's the last question you ask in a client exit interview call?
Well, it depends if it's a positive or negative one. If it's a positive one, maybe what are you doing this weekend? If it's a negative one, it's something along the lines of, is there anything else that could have been done? Okay. Is there any hope of any progress or anything, being revived here? Gotcha. When it's abundantly clear that there's not sort of a revival opportunity, the question becomes more along the lines of like, how far are our expectations for each other really away from each other, right? Because if the client in my line of work would say, oh, I was really expecting these 50 zaps to be done by the end of last week, and there's still errors here. That's just not a great client for us to work with, right? Counting zaps, being that on top of it in terms of like error management, not understanding that those things are like, an ongoing problem. Just not a great fit for us. But to obtain that at the end of the conversation to say, this is where my expectations actually were, and this is where you are, great, we're making the right decision parting ways. You want that last question is really like confirm that this is going the way that I want it to go, and that's best for everybody. And in that case, it's just, everyone moving on.
Gotcha. I always end my my client exit interviews with, what do we hand off to, whoever's taking
who
this
do
thing?
We hand off to? Yeah.
Well, who do we hand off to? Like, how do I package this up and give this over to you? So this is ending as cleanly as it can. I think it's worth talking about, right? Now, you and I both have super different businesses, but what is it that you do to prepare to offboard a client? Like, how do you manage that for somebody?
So we start that on day one, which is when we start the engagement with the client, we intentionally do not get access to any tooling. We build everything in their systems. So if they decide on a Zoom call one day, I don't like your cologne, I'm going to move on. Great. That's
on a
fine.
Zoom call, they don't like your cologne. Man,
it
that's
was a joke. That was the joke.
I get it.
So they already have everything set up in their accounts. So there's really no separation that needs to happen. So it makes it easier for them to walk whenever they want, which I would rather have, because transitional time, if you need to unwind things or redesign things or rebuild something, that's work you're just not going to get paid for, right? Yeah. They don't, if someone's parting ways with you, they're not going to pay you an extra however many $1,000s to, just set it up in my account now. Yeah. No. That's a sign of really, frankly, like an immature business practice. Yes. Like if you're building stuff in your account to save money or to save your clients money, it's short-sighted and not going to make things easier in the long term. So by doing everything in their accounts from the beginning, it just makes that exit conversation that much easier and should really give the client a peace of mind throughout the engagement, because they know that you're not going to all of a sudden turn things off and then say, more money, please. You don't want to be in that position.
No, I totally agree. It's the same for me. I always build in my clients add accounts. And that means when things end, it's more like, hey, all of the files we shared in Notion and in Figma are going to remain where they were in perpetuity, basically, right? For as long as Crowdtamer is in the business. I have clients who, we made their ad designs 3 years ago, and the Figma files are still live. You could still go grab them, right? So all the links I gave them 3 years ago are still active in Notion as well. Just a matter of like, hey, grab them. I cannot guarantee you when they will go, but everything we build is always built and shared in public. So there's nothing for me to hand off per se.
Yeah.
I have done, so for some clients where it's a more positive departure, I've not infrequently helped them hire in a VP of marketing to actually like grow the business.
Same. Yeah.
Because I don't want to work with companies when they reach a certain size. The problems they're solving aren't the ones I like. That's fine. So I'll help them
Sure.
hire in their VP, and then I will give them training on what we're doing and why. I will explain some of the strange decisions we make and why they are done that way. Uh, and then I will even, for the clients who we ended things well with, it can be like, hey, look, open ended. You ever want to come back, right? We'll keep you at the rate you're at now if you
That's a
come back
deal.
for any work in the next year. In the next year, we'll keep you at the rate, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that you can say, because my rates went up like more than doubled for my guaranteed package over the course of about 9 months last year. Because I priced it real low to begin with, just because I wanted to price it real low to see if I could sell it at all. But then I found, what you rent seek, you find what the market will bear, and that's what you charge. So that's what I've been doing. That's fine. But so some of those clients who I parted ways with well back in the day, they're like, one of them came back and was like, "Hey, can you do this package for me?" And I said, "Yes, it's now this much money." And they went, "It was way less than that when we did it." I'm like, "Yeah, that's true. Fine, I'll cut you a deal. I'll bring you in
Yeah.
at a
Yeah.
lower amount."
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So yeah, those are important to do and to kind of honor uh,
Yeah.
your responsibility. You were hired to be an expert to solve a problem, and even if whether or not you solved it adequately, as a professional,
Hmm.
you should do your best to hand things off as neatly as possible. Also, because the thing you don't want is in 4 weeks' time the client to go, "Hey, I don't have access to this, or I need this reporting, or I need this other thing. Can you do it?" As you mentioned, this is not work you get paid for.
Yeah. And we've done very similar things with helping a growing company hire in somebody, writing a job description
Yeah.
for what it is that we're doing, or but at the end of the day, it's absolutely a good idea to share what you did and why with this new person, because why would you want all your work to just go down the tubes, right? Like there's a sense of momentum. Like you did some help, you helped some human figure out something in their business. You might as well let them run with it, right? Like what do you really gain out of not talking to a new hire or not talking to the new agency that they're hiring? Like it's short-sighted business practices that are just not gonna come back to you in a positive light, especially those clients that do inevitably come back, because that's just a part of the world. I mean, we've had clients that shifted companies and brought us into new companies, right? That happens all the time. You've got to have that long term perspective with these types of things. Otherwise, you'll be in this cycle of constantly trying to reinvent things.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. So I've talked about how I've parted ways with clients. You have to we help them hire in. That's an obvious reason you've made yourself redundant. Sometimes you have clients who are difficult. Either they're just themselves difficult humans. I've had some of those, or they're dissatisfied. The pre-call, I mentioned how sometimes you part ways with clients and it's bittersweet, and sometimes you both walk away kind of doing this number, like the YouTube video of the guys across the street flipping the bird at each other. Um, when it ends that way, what do you try and do to mitigate the results of that to you and your business?
Isolate, and I mean, it's so hard. Every situation is different. There's been negative relationships that are amicable, right? I'm going this way, you can go that way. You have all this stuff already. Goodbye, right? And I mean, I've been threatened before by clients.
Wow.
Like there's a lot of cans of worms that can go that way. Um, but a lot of times I try to approach it with curiosity and confusion. Like at the end of the day, right? There was no malicious intent here, right? Like, can we at least agree on that? You know what I mean? And being able to approach it a little bit more pragmatically to say, look, maybe we weren't so clear as we could have been in the sales process, and you were looking for X and you got Y. I'm sorry, right? Let's part ways that way. Versus, uh, I don't even want to say the name of the AI company that I ran into a client that got ripped off tens of thousands of dollars from this AI company
Oh no.
that is just a shell and just taking funds from people and not actually having a product. Right. That's obvious malicious intent.
Yeah.
Right. There's just a huge distinction between the two, and I think a little bit of candor and a little bit of directness, even with a client that is in a negative light currently, can go a very long way. A phone call, right? Those old things actually can communicate a lot more than a Zoom call. A lot of times, because you actually hear and feel the tonality
Really?
of the voice. That's just in my experience. I've found that when it is a tense situation, a phone call definitely helps diffuse that, as opposed to let's
Interesting.
hop on another Zoom, and then it's just a tough situation.
A phone call? You mean you can call people on this device and not have the video turned on?
Yeah, it's true. You can.
I didn't know.
Yeah, you have to download a specific app, I think.
There you go. Yes, called Alexander Graham Bell. There you
Yeah.
go. All right. So yeah, I think that is one, particularly in an acrimonious split. Emotions are high, right?
Yeah.
I know after I have a client leave, like the one I mentioned who left last week, who was mad, and I thought I didn't think it was entirely justified, but whatever it is on his terms, it was. You can't argue that. Um, like it rattled me for the day, and I think it always is when I have a client leave who's mad. Usually, the rest of that day, my brain is just not in the right place. I'm spending my time rethinking the conversation, thinking of the witty comeback I should have said,
Which is normal
which is normal, right?
and
And I think
okay.
yes, take the hit for the day if you have to, right? Let it go. The next day, got to get back in the saddle. You got to be back in it again. And important to note, I have never. I'm just checking. Yes,
Yeah, think
literally
about that for
never,
a second.
never in my life, when I have sent that angry email, has the result been good. Whatever that angry, like whenever you write and you're in white hot rage, and you're like this, and then you suck, and this is like never once in my life has the result been good. Worth noting, if you have a client where you wrote that angry text or that angry email, write it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take
Entirely
yes.
write it.
Write the whole thing out. Get it out. It's like you're releasing the poison from you.
Yep.
To have written it out and then even edit it to re-hone your arguments, like this is tight, and then just delete it. Because never has there been a good result, in my experience, in sending that letter. I've done it a bunch. Like I don't have one data point to base this off of, right? 25-year-old Trevor did this stuff often, and 42-year-old Trevor would be in a different place if 25-year-old Trevor was smarter. So, whatever, right? That anger, that vitriol, yeah, let it happen, let it go. The client relationship should be professional, even if the client is not. Because the client can threaten, the client can bluster, the client can say all kinds of horrible stuff about you.
Whether or not it's true.
But that's true. Let it go, right? There is, generally speaking, always another client. Unless you're working in some crazy niche business, put that one down and find the next one tomorrow. You'll be okay.
But it is really valuable to open up an email draft with no to address.
Yeah, don't
Right?
accidentally put it and then send it. Oh,
No
I've
to
done that
address.
once.
It's a
I've done
draft,
that once.
right?
Yeah.
It's a draft that might be a little therapeutic. It might be a little, unhinged. It's okay, right? If you need to send it to your own team or send it to yourself just to get it out, that's fine.
Yeah.
But don't hit reply, right?
Nope.
Don't have it their name in the to address. It's just not worth it.
Don't.
But switching gears, Trevor,
Yes, sir.
those are horror stories.
I know
Tell me
we've done
about
those already.
the other side, maintaining positive relationships with former clients. Maybe something nice.
Yeah, a couple of things I've done. So one, I've had a bunch of my former clients on my podcast, and I'll continue throwing them in my podcast from time to time, because not this one, obviously. I mean, technically, you are actually a former client. Now that I think about it,
And so are you.
and so am I. And also, like we've been getting along together for years, but usually they're not people I host 24 episodes of a podcast with. Um, I'll bring them on once, right? This is a good way to rekindle a relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
I will. I generally do subscribe them to my newsletter, which is not necessarily the kindest thing to do, but on the other hand, they keep opening them, so they must not hate them that much. Um, I will. I haven't done. I didn't do it last holiday season because I've mentioned many times my company was freaking broke last holiday season. But I'll probably resume again this year, sending out Christmas cards with very bad poetry on the inside. I always write. Do I have one? I don't remember if I have any here. When I was at UNITO, we did this, and at GOG we did as well. I don't think I have one here. I would write like just the worst Dr. Seuss caliber poems of like, "We wish you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year." With UNITO, we've synchronized all your good cheer, like whatever. This kind of, I'm not. This was not. No one gave me the Booker Prize. Okay,
First class terrible. Yeah.
exactly. First class, but it was, and then I would hand sign everyone. Which for UNITO, the last year I was there, it was an operation because we had to send out 1,100 cards,
Oh my goodness.
and so
That's a day at least.
there were 11 people in the company, and we all signed 100.
Wow.
So, and then Mark, the CEO, was like, "We're not doing this next year," and I'm like, "We'll see." And I left the company, so I don't know if they did it or not. But as a way to do it, like, when's the last time you got even something as dumb as just a little holiday card from a vendor of yours? Probably never in the last decade.
I still have it somewhere, and if somebody in the comments or reaches out to us or something, I'll dig it up. But we had at my last company, we were a design company, and we had a bunch of designers. So come the holiday season, work slowed down. So we actually made and designed our own card, and this was like way ahead of its time. It was Santa Claus in like a courtroom, and someone saying exactly, "Now tell me, Mr. Claus, who exactly is on the nice list?" I don't know why that was so funny at the time, but it was a little ahead of all the debacles on social now. But
Gotcha. I
that
like
that
it.
was
That's
that was a
good.
good one.
That's good. At UNITO, we also custom made the designs because we had designers. And I remember the last year, the one they did was a handmade illustration of a reindeer in a hipster ugly Christmas sweater. Right? Why is that thing? I don't know why it's that thing, but it's what we did. There's
That's
nothing to
cool.
do with synchronization at all. So anyway, come up with a gift, right? Give people who are past clients something nice. I also give my affiliates, as not really a client, but I guess a business partnership. I will generally get them something nice that's got like a modest price tag to it, like $100 or something, because they're reliably bringing me, $20,000, $40,000, $80,000 clients. Like, in addition to their revenue share, it doesn't cost me anything to send them a nice little something.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it cost me something. It cost me $100, but it's like compared to the value return, it's not very much.
Yeah. The other thing that I would say, especially with positive clients, is you have the opportunity to send them business.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not necessarily a one-way street here.
Yes,
I think it was Ryan Holiday talked about the canvas strategy,
Mhm.
which is literally putting up a canvas for other people to paint on.
Yeah.
Right. Like you have the opportunity to send work, send opportunities, send potential employees, heck, like send value their way also, because it's not just a one-way street. Just because you're an agency doesn't mean that everything should go just to you.
Yeah, indeed. I was laughing because I am reminded of the fact that a client of mine who nearly 4 years ago now stiffed me on a bill is somebody who I got a job at X-Ray Tech.
That is true. That is true.
We parted ways relatively amicably because I didn't blame him for the situation where he couldn't pay me. And then uh, 4 years later, one, I get him a job, and two, I get you hopefully a good employee.
Yeah. It's been working out pretty well so far.
So far, excellent. All right. I think one last thing as we wrap this up, right? Offboarding that are positive or that are negative are always opportunities to learn and reflect and endeavor to be better. What do you do internally in your company after a client has departed to examine this and say, what should we do next time?
So this isn't exclusive to a separation per se. This is just whenever projects are done. So
Okay.
we always do a postmortem. Um, it's a little morbid, but we just talk about the end of the project and what went well or what didn't go well. We've changed processes, we've changed softwares, we've let go of people or hired people, or like there's so many variations of things that happen when you just create time to act on the result that you've been working towards for however long with a given client in a given situation. So just making that time, 30 minutes is fine. Open up a Google Doc, write down some structure around what went well, what didn't go well, what next steps, if any, are you going to take? And that actually creates the opportunity for your team to react and adjust to this new set of information that you're analyzing from this client who's leaving, good, bad, or somewhere else.
Yeah. This is an area that I'd argue at Crowd Tamers we are lacking in. I don't do post-mortems with my team. I do tend to analyze what I've seen gone wrong, and I do ask the team members who were working on the account kind of, hey, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
But we're not formal about it. And I mean, back when I only had 4 clients at the same time, end of last year, that level of structure probably wasn't needed. Now that I've got whatever it is, 15, like this is something I'm definitely going to have to be a little more systematic about. And the other one, and I'm crap at this. I think a lot of founders are crap at this. Is celebrating the success you've achieved for the clients who leave on good terms.
I am also crap at this.
Yeah, and it is hard as a founder because all you see is everything is wrong and I'm fired all the time. But
yeah,
I have a reminder set in my calendar on Fridays now, as I do my weekly planning, because weekly planning is every Friday. Any good comment I've had a client give about anything we've delivered, I make sure to call out and thank the team member who did it.
That's
so
awesome.
The client might say, these designs were great. I'm like, hey, Ram, client loved the designs this week. Good job, right? Making the client happy with that. Or client super happy about the leads that came in, right? We've helped turn the business around. Media buyer and copywriter who are working on it. Hey, you guys put together the right strategy, the right copy. It's working for them. Good job. Just calling that out. Because if I don't set the reminder, I won't do it.
Yeah.
Founders,
I mean, that's just part of it. If you don't make time for it, it slips by. It slips by.
Yep.
Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for the day. Trevor, anything else? Where do they find you on the internet?
Well, here, I mean, obviously, if you're watching on the live stream, I saw a couple folks pop in and pop out. I'm in this little box. I'm on crowdtamers.com. You can find me at linkedin.com/in/Trevor Longino. And I mean, I'm on all the platforms as Trevor Longino. So just find me there. How about you, Tom? Where do folks find you?
I would say head on over to YouTube and check us out there because we're just about ready to cross 10,000 subscribers in June. I think we're on pace for it right now. And we are X-Ray Automation on YouTube, and come check us out. There's a whole bunch of tutorials, and we're going to start doing quite a bit more strategy. We've got a course coming out for workflow designers if you're looking for a career change. So definitely some good free content there.
Oh, yeah. I'm launching my course 1st of June. I'm relaunching it, I should say. It's coming, which is my go-to-market mastery mentorship program as well. Look at you and me. We're both educators. I told my parents, who were both teachers, when I grew up, there was no way I was going to be a teacher. And now somehow here I am.
There you are. Doing it every day, Trevor.
Doing it every day. All right. Thanks so much, everybody who watched. And Tom, I will see you in 2 weeks.
See you next